From your ears to your heart, we bring the light of knowledge to illuminate your life. Ilmwaves.com, where we make ilm possible.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma la sahla illa ma ja'altahu sahla. Wa anta ya hayyu ya qayyum taj'alul hazna idha shi'ta sahla. I start off by praising Allah, the Lord of the worlds, and I humbly ask Him to raise the rank of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and to protect his nation from that which he fears for it. Thereafter, brothers and sisters, we have reached the fourth hadith of the hadith that were narrated by Imam Nawawiyy in his book Al-Arba'in An-Nawawiyya, the 40 hadiths of Imam An-Nawawi, Abu Zakaria Muhyiddin Yahya ibn Sharaf. As you have learned that is his name, Abu Zakaria Muhyiddin Yahya ibn Sharaf. So inshallah ta'ala we will continue. I will say the hadith in Arabic, then I will follow it with the meaning in English, and then we will explain it insha'Allah ta'ala. قال أبو زكريا محي الدين يحيى بن شرف رحمة الله تعالى عليه. الحديث الرابع عن أبي عبد الرحمن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه أنه قال: حدثنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو الصادق المصدوق: إن أحدكم يجمع خلقه في بطن أمه 40 يوما نطفة، ثم يكون علقة مثل ذلك، ثم يكون مضغة مثل ذلك، ثم يرسل الملك فينفخ فيه الروح، ويؤمر ب4 كلمات: بكتب رزقه وأجله وعمله وشقي أم سعيد. فوالذي لا إله غيره إن أحدكم ليعمل بعمل أهل الجنة حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع، فيسبق عليه الكتاب فيعمل بعمل أهل النار فيدخلها، وإن أحدكم ليعمل بعمل أهل النار حتى ما يكون بينه وبينها إلا ذراع، فيسبق عليه الكتاب فيعمل بعمل أهل الجنة فيدخلها. رواه البخاري ومسلم. The fourth hadith from the route of Abu Abdurrahman Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah accept his deeds, who said: the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam told us, and he is the truthful one and the one to whom the truth is told, the appearance of one of you would be completed in one's mother's womb for 40 days as nutfa, which is joined fertilized sperm. Then for a similar duration would be as an alaqah, which is like a bloody clot. Then for a similar duration would be as a mudghah, a piece of flesh. Then the angel would be sent to blow the soul into it, and would be ordered to write down 4 matters: one's sustenance, death time, deeds, and whether one would die as a blasphemer or a believer. I swear by Allah, the one whom no one is God but Him, that one of you would perform the deeds that appear to be the deeds of the people of paradise, until only the distance of a cubit separates one from entering it. Then what is written in the guarded tablet happens, and one would do the deeds of the people of hellfire and would enter it. And that one of you would perform the deeds of the people of hellfire until only the distance of a cubit separates one from entering it. Then what is written in the guarded tablet happens, and one would do the deeds of the people of paradise and would enter it. Narrated by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. Now, insha'Allah ta'ala, before we start, there is something I wanted to mention, and I should have mentioned this, I guess, in the first lesson that we had when we were doing the introduction. Basically, brothers and sisters, I suggest that each and one of us increase their involvement in what they're doing right now. One way to do this is to attend these lessons not just as a learner but also as a teacher. Right? Have this mentality that insha'Allah ta'ala, what I learn from these lessons, I will teach it to my spouse, to my siblings, to my mother, to a family member, a relative. Right? Have this mentality that insha'Allah, what I hear from these lessons, I will teach it to someone. You will realize that you are more conscious of what is being said. not only mentally but emotionally. If you hear a touching verse from the Quran, a verse that is being explained, it will touch your heart. When you hear a very beautiful hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it is going to touch your heart. When you hear a story of the pious people, it's going to touch your heart. Why? Because you are more conscious, or because you have a different mentality. You are not just listening to the lesson as a learner, but you want to implement it. You want to be a teacher. You want to mention what you heard in this hadith, even if it's only part of the hadith. But if you have this mentality that you are a teacher, you are going to have more of an experience, honestly. And that is why I suggest you take this approach. And not only on top of that, but to write, to take down notes. Right? The person who is attending a lesson with the intention that he is going to teach something that he hears from this hadith, he is going to take notes, sahih. And when a person does this, he will be more attached to what is being said also. This is why Umar ibn al-Khattab, he said, Al-ilmu saydun wal-kitabatu qayduhu. That knowledge is like a hunted animal. It is something that you go out and seek. Wal-kitabatu qayduhu. And writing down that knowledge is the ropes, it is the chain, it is the thing that binds that hunted animal. It is that thing that binds that knowledge. And you will notice, brothers and sisters, if you wanted to go hunt an animal, what do? After you hunted it and after you, for example, hit it, what do? You bind it, right? You don't just take it and walk with it home. You bind it down. Why? Why do you bind it? Because out of fear that if you do not bind it, it's going to leave, it's going to run away. And knowledge is like that. If you do not write it down, it is going to escape your memory. You're going to forget about it. And this has happened to me on many occasions. There would be a hadith, for example, that really affects me. It really touches my heart, but I do not write it down. And then later on, I want to remember what I heard, and then I forget. I cannot. Right? And this is not something that shows a deficiency in a person, because this is natural. Right? Humans are forgetful. And if you do not write down what you are hearing, you're going to forget. And it's sometimes, subhanallah, it's like you never heard it before. Or you might hear that same exact hadith in a different lesson, and it'll be like the first time you ever heard it, and you won't even remember that you heard it before. Or you have like a faint memory, subhanallah, I heard that somewhere, but I can't remember where I heard that. That is why I suggest for those of you who are listening to write down what you hear and to take notes. Right? And to have the mentality that you are going to teach something that you hear from these lessons. Right? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. Convey from me even if it is one verse. So even if it's one thing that you hear from these lessons, convey it. And have this intention, have this mentality that you're going to teach it to someone. And when you have this approach, honestly, really, brothers and sisters, you'll realize that you have you will have a better experience, consciously and emotionally. And that's what I advise all of us to do when we are attending Islamic lessons. And on top of that, you'll realize that you won't fall asleep in these lessons. If you write down and you have this type of mentality, you won't fall asleep in lessons. Right? But if you're an individual who's just sitting there listening, you're going to fall asleep. They're more likely to fall asleep. So barakallahu feekum, take this type of approach, have this mentality, and try to have this type of involvement. And I promise you, you will have a better experience, insha'Allah ta'ala. So this hadith that we are on, the fourth hadith which we are about to explain, is an extremely important hadith, and it serves as a foundation for many Islamic principles, many core beliefs. And insha'Allah ta'ala, we will explain that as we go along. So this is a very important and prominent hadith, to the point that Imam Ahmad, may Allah ta'ala have mercy on him, he said, وَدِدْتُ لَوْ أَنَّ كُلَّ مَنْ صَنَفَ فِي حَدِيثِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ ابْتَدَأَ كِتَابَهُ بِثَلَاثَةِ أَحَادِيث. He said, which means, I love for anybody that authored in the hadith about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to start their book with 3 hadith. Right? So he's encouraging those who write about the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to start their books with 3 hadith. And he said, hadithu innamal a'malu bin niyat, the hadith innamal a'malu bin niyat that we explained, which is the first hadith in the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawiyy. And then he also said, وَحَدِيثُ كُلُّ عَمَلٍ لَيْسَ عَلَيْهِ أَمْرُنَا فَهُوَ رَدٌّ. And this is going to be the 5th hadith, inshallah, that we are going to explain. And I'll leave the explanation to that. And then also he said, وَحَدِيث Inna ahadakum yujma'. And this is the hadith that we are on right now, the fourth hadith. So over here, Imam Ahmad is encouraging anyone who wants to author and talk about the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to mention these three hadiths in the beginning of their book. And you notice over here that Imam Nawawiyy wrote these hadiths, he put these hadith in his books and he explained it. MashaAllah. So over here we can see that the third hadith that Imam Ahmad mentioned, Inna ahadakum yujma'. And this is the hadith that we are going to explain insha'Allah ta'ala. And you will notice that this hadith is narrated by the great companion Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. May Allah ta'ala accept his deeds and raise his rank. So this great companion Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is the one who narrated this hadith. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, just some information about him. He was among the first to embrace Islam. MashaAllah. He was among the first to embrace Islam. So he was among the first to support the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it was actually said that he was the sixth. Right? He was the sixth companion to embrace Islam. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was also among the companions who were able to perform the two migrations, the two hijrahs. He performed the hijrah to Ethiopia. He also performed the hijrah, the migration to the city of Medina. And he was also among the people who fought in the battle of Badr with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the scholars of Islam, they have a certain habit that whenever they come across a companion who fought in the battle of Badr, they mention it. Right? They mention that this companion participated in the battle of Badr. Right? They specify that this companion is Badri. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was among the people who fought in the battle of Badr. And the reason because of this is that there is a certain distinction that the people of Badr have. Those companions who fought in the battle of Badr have a certain distinction. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, لا يدخل النار أحد شهد بدرا والحديبية. That anyone who participated in the battle of Badr and in the battle of Hudaybiyah, that they will not enter hellfire. MashaAllah. And this is the distinction. And this is the Prophet ﷺ guaranteeing anyone who participated in these two battles that they will enter paradise. MashaAllah. And they will not enter hellfire. May Allah Ta'ala raise the rank of this great companion. And at the end of this hadith about the battle of Badr, the Prophet ﷺ, he also said, رُبَّمَا نَظَرَ اللَّهُ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِ بَدْرٍ فَقَالَ فَعَلْ مَا شِئْتُمْ قَدْ عَفَوْتُ لَكُمْ. MashaAllah. And this hadith means that even if the people of Badr, those who participated in the battle of Badr, even if they fell into sins previously, Allah Ta'ala will forgive them of their sins. If al-ma shi'tum, no matter what you did, قَدْ عَفَوْتُ لَكُمْ, that Allah Ta'ala has forgiven you of your sins. And this is the distinction that they have, and this is why the scholars of Islam, when they come across a companion who participated in the battle of Badr, they mention, yes, this companion is among the people who fought in the battle of Badr, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was among those who supported and fought and participated in the battle of Badr. And he also narrated many hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. It was mentioned that he narrated 848 hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. MashaAllah, that's a lot of hadith. And he was also among those who knew asbabun nuzul. And this is the reasons of revelations of Quranic verses. Why this verse was revealed, for what specific incident or what specific reason. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was very firm and had a lot of knowledge in this category of the Islamic Quranic sciences. So he knew about the verses in the Quran, where they were revealed, and for what purpose, for what reason, or what incident occurred. MashaAllah. And he also used to be with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam a lot. He would always be with the Prophet, to the point that some companions said, I used to think that Ibn Mas'ud was from the family of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they're saying this because he is always with him. He was always with the Prophet alaihi salatu wasalam. And this shows you and is an indication of his high motivation to learn from the Prophet and to be from the Prophet alaihi salatu wasalam and to benefit from him. And he did benefit. May Allah Ta'ala raise his rank. And it was also mentioned that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he would hold the Prophet's siwak sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What a great honor. And he would give it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam whenever the Prophet needed it. And he would even climb the tree if needed. Like he would climb the tree to get that siwak if the Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam needed a siwak. And it was mentioned that he would climb the tree of Arak. And this is a certain tree that you can take one of its branches and use it as a siwak. Right? There are many different types of siwak. This is one of the types of trees that you can use to get a siwak from. And he would do this. He would climb this tree. So once he climbed the tree and he was on top of the tree and it began to shake, it began to move because of the wind. So what happened was that his shin appeared. Right? He was on top of the tree, and because of the tree moving, his shin became uncovered, and the companions saw it. And his shin is very thin. Right? His shin is very thin. So the companions saw it and they started to laugh. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard about this, he said, لَهُمَا أَثْقَلٌ فِي الْمِيزَانِ مِنْ جَبَلِ أُحُدٍ لَهُمَا أَثْقَلُ فِي الْمِيزَانِ مِنْ جَبَلِ أُحُدٍ. That the shin of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud are heavier on the scale on the day of judgment than the mountain of Uhud. Allahu Akbar. And the Prophet ﷺ is praising him, and he is saying this because Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he would always walk to do a lot of obedience. He would always walk. So for this reason, Allah Ta'ala will make his scale heavy on the day of judgment. So even though his shin were thin, this does not affect a person's thawab, his reward. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ أَجْسَامِكُمْ وَلَا إِلَىٰ صُوَرِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ يَنْظُرُ إِلَىٰ أَعْمَالِكُمْ. And this means that Allah Ta'ala does not judge us and does not base us on our appearance. Allah Ta'ala does not base us on our appearance. Rather, He judges us based on our a'mal, on our deeds. And this is what is most important. So even though Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, this was his appearance, that his shin were thin, Allah Ta'ala will reward him greatly because of the a'mal, because of the good deeds he did and the obedience and how he supported the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he would always hold the container of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that he used to make wudu. This was another honor and privilege for him. And he would also hold the pillow of the Prophet Alaihi Salatu Wasallam during the travels, during the Prophet Alaihi Salatu Wasallam when he would travel. And he would also walk in front of the Prophet. And he would do this consistently. And when he was asked about this, he said he did that in order to protect the Prophet ﷺ from any harm that would be in front of him. MashaAllah. So he was basically sacrificing himself to the harm of anything that might come to the Prophet ﷺ. May Allah Ta'ala raise his rank. And another privilege that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud had is that he would hold the Prophet's slippers Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He would hold the Prophet's slippers under his armpit and he would protect it. MashaAllah. He would protect the Prophet's slippers and he would hold it for him alayhi salam. And this is a great honor for Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. May Allah Ta'ala raise his rank. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud also had a very beautiful recitation. And the Prophet ﷺ, he himself praised the recitation of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. MashaAllah. He said ﷺ, مَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يَقْرَأَ الْقُرْآنَ غَضًّا كَمَا أُنزِلْ فَلْيَقْرَأْهُ عَلَى قِرَاءَةِ ابْنِ أُمِّ عَبْدٍ. And this is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and this means whoever wishes to read the Qur'an as it was revealed, then let him read on the recitation of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. MashaAllah. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, sometimes he would recite the Qur'an in public. And this was not common, subhanallah, but he was courageous and he wasn't scared of anybody. Even though he was small in size, it was narrated that he was small, he wasn't a big person. Right? So when Surah Al-Rahman was revealed, the Prophet ﷺ, he asked, who will go out to the non-Muslims and read this surah? Who is going to convey this surah to them? So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he volunteered. So he went to the Kaaba. While everybody was around the Kaaba, he began to recite in a loud voice. Abu Jahl got up and he hit him in his face, and blood began to drip from his ear. Subhanallah. May Allah Ta'ala raise his rank. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah Ta'ala raise his rank. He persevered and he was courageous and he was brave. MashaAllah. Now back to the hadith, brothers and sisters. It says about the Prophet ﷺ that he is Sadiq. Right? It says, وَهُوَ الصَّادِقُ الْمَصْدُوقُ. Now what do they mean, Sadiq and Masduq? They are both very similar. They are both derived from the word Siddiq. Right? The Sad, the Dal and the Qaf. And this means truthfulness. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ, he is Sadiq because he speaks the truth. Right? His words that he says is truthful. Also his actions are truthful. This is what it means when it says Sadiq over here to the Prophet ﷺ. Now Masduq is similar to Sadiq, and essentially it's for more emphasis. They both have very similar meanings, but it's for more emphasis. And what it means over here that he is Masduq sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it means he is the one who revelation comes to. The revelation comes to him. So if the revelation is coming to him, this means that he is truthful. Right? So this is one interpretation of it. Another interpretation is that he is masduq because of the miracles. Right? Because of the many miracles that he performed, and these miracles show his truthfulness. These miracles show his authenticity, so he is masduq in this context. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this is what it means when it says, وَهُوَ الصَّادِقُ الْمَصْدُوقُ. And the continuation of the hadith is, إِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ يُجْمَعُ خَلْقُهُ فِي بَطْنِ أُمِّهِ 40 يَوْمًا نُطْفَةً ثُمَّ يَكُونُ عَلَقَةً مِثْلَ ذَلِكَ ثُمَّ يَكُونُ مُضْغَةً مِثْلَ ذَلِكَ. Right? And the meaning is that the person, he will be gathered in his mother's stomach for 40 days as a nutfah, which is the sperm, gathered sperm. ثُمَّ يَكُونُ عَلَقَةً, which is, then he will be a blood clot. Something that resembles a blood clot. Then he will be ثُمَّ يَكُونُ مُضْغَةً مِثْلَ ذَلِكَ. Then he will be a mudghah, and mudghah is a piece of flesh. And the nutfah is the mani that is combined. Right? The mani that is combined from the male and the female. It was mentioned in the Quran, مِن نُطْفَةٍ أَمْشَاجٍ يَبْتَلِيهِ. Right? So this is a verse that shows that the nutfah is combined mani from the male and the female. And it was mentioned in the hadith that it flows through her whole body, subhanallah, even under the skin and the nails and the hair. And then after 40 days it turns into a nutfah. Right? The Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith, إِنَّ النُّطْفَةَ إِذَا وَقَعَتْ فِي الرَّحِمِ فَأَرَادَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى أَن يَخْلُقَ مِنْهَا بَشَرًا طَارَتْ فِي بَشَرَةِ الْمَرْأَةِ تحت كل ظفر وشعر ثم تمكث 40 ليلة ثم تصير دما في الرحم فذلك جمعها وهو وقت كونها علقة. So this is a hadith that mentions that it flows through her whole body, even her skin and her nails and her hair. And then after 40 days it turns into a nutfah. Subhanallah, tabarakallah. And Allah Ta'ala knows best how that occurs and the reality of it. Subhanallah. If you try to describe it in actuality, and Allah Ta'ala knows best how that occurs. But this is something that was mentioned in a hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And وَهُوَ الصَّادِقُ الْمَصْدُوقُ. Everything that he mentioned was truth. MashaAllah. So we believe in it. And we submit ourselves to it. And as we mentioned earlier, both the male and the female have mani. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in the hadith, إِذَا سَبَقَ مَاءُ الرَّجُلِ مَاءَ الْمَرْأَةِ أَذْكَرَا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. That if the mani of the male comes before the mani of the female, that the child will be a male. أذْكَرَا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, by the will of Allah. وَإِذَا سَبَقَ مَاءُ الْمَرْأَةِ مَاءَ الرَّجُلِ آنَثَا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And if the mani of the female came before the mani of the male, then the child will be a female, bi'idhnillah, by the will of Allah. So this is a clear hadith that the male and the female both have mani. Right? They both have mani. And it's also mentioned here, clear proof that the way it's decided whether the child is a male or a female depends on whose mani comes first. If it's the mani of the father, the male mani, then the child will be a male. And if it's the mani of the female, then the child will be a female. Bi'idhnillah, by the will of Allah. Now sometimes, subhanallah, you might have a child, and this child does not resemble the mother or the father in appearance. When you look at them physically, their physical characteristics, they do not resemble the mother or the father. The eyes, the nose, the mouth, sometimes even the skin color. This doesn't resemble the mother or the father. Subhanallah. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, يَحْضُرُهُ أَيَحْضُرُ هَذَا الْجَنِينَ كُلُّ عِرْقٍ دُونَ آدَمٍ فَيَخْلُقُهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى مَا يَشَاءُ. And there's even an incident that occurred that illustrates that a child might be born and it might not resemble the mother or the father, but this does not mean that this child is from zina. It does not mean that the mother had adultery or anything like that. Once one of the companions came to the Prophet ﷺ after his wife gave birth. And his wife gave birth to a child that did not look like him or his wife. Right? She gave birth to a child that was black, that was dark skinned. And he does not have the skin complexion, nor does she. So he went to the Prophet ﷺ insinuating that maybe she committed zina, or maybe she committed adultery. And he had no proof. So the Prophet ﷺ, he asked him, do you have a camel? The man replied, yes. The Prophet said, what color is that camel? He said, red. The Prophet ﷺ said, from its lineage, do you have a camel that's grayish, that looks silver, that has this grayish tone? So he said, yes. And the Prophet ﷺ said, then where did this color come from, this reddish color come from? Then the man said, Ya Rasulullah, la'alla irqan naza'ahu. And this means, O Messenger of Allah, maybe it has in its lineage from one of its grandfathers that has the skin color, this reddish color. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, وَلَعَلَّ عِرْقًا نَزَعَهُ. And also maybe your child got this characteristics from one of its lineage, from one of its grandfathers. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And in the continuation of the hadith, it says, ثُمَّ يُرْسَلُ الْمَلَكُ. And then the angel will be sent. And the angel that will be sent is the angel of the womb. Right? There is a certain angel that takes this task and does this duty. So this is the angel that is sent. فَيَنْفُخُ فِيهِ الرُّوحِ. And then the soul will be blown into the womb, into that baby. And notice over here it says ثُمَّ يُرْسَلُ الْمَلَكُ. Then the angel will be sent. And the word ثُمَّ in the Arabic language, it usually entails that there is a duration, right? That it's not immediate. This is what it usually means. For example, you say جَاءَ زَيْدٌ ثُمَّ بَكَرْ. That Zayd came and then Bakr came. So this entails that there was a duration, that they did not come immediately after one another. Zayd came, then Bakr came. The word thumma, then thumma. You notice over here that the Prophet ﷺ said, thumma yursalul malak. And then the angel will be sent. Now the word thumma over here does not entail that there is a duration. It's actually immediate. So as soon as the baby goes through this process of being a nutfa, then a alaqa, then a mudghah, as soon as this duration, this 120 days passes, the angel is sent and immediately it comes. So immediately after this 120 days, the angel comes and he does these matters that were mentioned in the hadith. And notice in the hadith that it says وَيُؤْمَرْ, that the letter wa was used, وَيُؤْمَرْ. And the wa in the Arabic language, linguistically, sometimes it can entail tartib, which is order or sequence, and sometimes it cannot. For example, you say Ja'a Zayd wa Bakr, that Zayd came and Bakr came. So it's possible that Zayd came first, and it's also possible that maybe Bakr came first. Right? So the letter waw, this is what it entails in the Arabic language. And notice over here that it says wa yu'mar. And the same thing applies. It's possible that the first thing that occurs is that the angel blows the soul and then he writes down these four matters, or it's possible to be the opposite, vice versa. It's possible for the first thing that the angel does is write down these four matters and then he blows the soul into the baby. Right? And this is what it entails. It's possible one of the two. It's not clear exactly which one occurs first. It's possible for the soul to be blown in first, and it's also possible that the first thing the angel does is that he writes down these four matters, then he blows the soul into the baby. And among the things that the angel writes, the first thing that was mentioned in the hadith, it says بِكَتْبِ رِزْقِهِ, that the angel writes down the sustenance that this slave of Allah is going to acquire in his life. So before you are even born, brothers and sisters, the rizq, the sustenance that we acquire in our lives is already predestined. You cannot increase and you cannot decrease. Subhanallah. No matter how hard you try to work, you will not increase in your rizq except for what Allah Ta'ala willed for you. And you will not decrease except for what Allah Ta'ala willed for you. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith, Inna ruh al-Qudus nafatha fi ru'i, that angel Jibreel blew into my heart, Anna nafsan lan tamuta hatta tastakmila rizqaha wa ajalaha, that the nafs, that the person will not die until he has taken what he has been given from his rizq and his time of death. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ وَأَجْمِلُوا فِي الطَّلَبِ. So fear Allah. And know, brothers and sisters, that this is something that should be firmly planted into our hearts. The certainty that no one is going to eat our rizq except what Allah Ta'ala willed for us to have. So whatever Allah Ta'ala willed for you to have, you're going to have it. And if Allah Ta'ala willed for you not to have it, you are not going to have it. And this is the mentality that the pious Muslims and the scholars of Islam have. It was narrated from Imam Ahmad al-Rifa'i that he said, لَمَّا عَلِمْتُ أَنَّ رِزْقِي لَنْ يَأْكُلَهُ غَيْرِي اطْمَأَنَّ بَالِي. And this means that when I realized and I comprehended and I understood completely with strong certainty that my sustenance, my rizq is not going to be eaten from anybody except myself, itma'anna bali. I became free of any worries. Free of any worries. Ya ahbabana, why do some of us live a life where we are constantly worried about our rizq, about our sustenance? We go to sleep worried about it. Subhanallah. We wake up worried about it. During our lives, during the day, we are worried about it. In the afternoon, we are worried about it. Why do we live our lives like this? With all these problems, all these worries about our rizq. Why, ya ahbabana? And we already know that everything that we acquire has been preordained. The money that you have in your bank, the money that you have in your pocket, the food in your fridge, all of this, Allah Ta'ala willed for you to have it. You will not increase and you will not decrease except from what Allah Ta'ala willed for you to have. Subhanallah. And this is the mentality that we should have. There was a man who would always win in his business initiatives. He was always profiting. Whenever he started a business or whenever he would do something, he would always make money. And he was very successful, subhanallah. So once he wanted to know how it feels to lose. He wanted to feel how it was to lose. So what did he do? Someone told him to buy dates from Kufa and go to Basra and sell it in Basra. Kufa and Basra are two cities in Iraq, in Iraq. So he said, take these dates from Kufa and go to Basra and sell it over there. And you will lose for sure. Why? Because in Basra they have a lot of dates. So there's no need for people to be buying dates. So if you want to know how it feels to lose in a business initiative, take these dates from Kufa and go to Basra and sell it over there. So he said, okay. And that's what he did. He bought a bunch of dates from Kufa and he went to Basra. But when he went there, the date trees did not ripe in Basra. Subhanallah. The date trees would not ripe. So he went there with all these dates and he sold all of them and he profited again. Allahu Akbar. Whatever Allah Ta'ala willed for you to have, you will have it. And whatever Allah Ta'ala willed for you not to have, you will not be able to obtain it. Allah Ta'ala said in the Quran, وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. That there is not an animal that is on the surface of the earth except that Allah Ta'ala provides for it. Subhanallah. And the word dabba is used. And this is كُلُّ مَا يَدِبُ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ. Anything that walks on the surface of the earth. Whether you walk using two legs like humans, or whether you are on four like the animals, or whether you are on your stomach like the snake. Allah Ta'ala provides for everything. وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا عَلَى اللَّهِ رِزْقُهَا. And brothers and sisters, when we have this mentality engraved into our hearts, and it is firmly rooted into our hearts, we will see many benefits. And among the benefits is that you will not be scared of saying the obligatory when you have to say it. You will not be scared. A lot of the times we have a brother or a sister, they'll be in a situation where they have to speak up and they need to correct this misguidance, for example. And the person making this mistake, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's a superior, someone who has authority, a governor, prime minister, president, whatever it may be. This person has authority over him. So he thinks to himself, if I correct him, maybe he'll fire me, for example. Maybe I'll lose my job. Right? This is what he thinks, that because that he does this obligatory thing, that he will lose his job and that he will have less money, for example. But brothers and sisters, ya ahbabana, your rizq is already written for you. The scholars of Islam said, Al-amru bil-ma'ruf wa-nahi anil-munkar la yadfa'u rizqan wa la yuqaddimu ajala. Allah, Allah. And this means that ordering the good and forbidding the bad does not push away any of your rizq. It does not push away any of your rizq. You're not going to have less sustenance because of this. Subhanallah. وَلَا يُقَدِّمُ أَجَلًا. And doing the obligatory also will not bring your time of death any closer. Your time of death is already written. Just because you order the good and forbid the bad, because you do this does not mean that you are going to die earlier. If you're going to die at that time, you're going to die at that time. If you're going to die later, you will die later. Subhanallah. Al-amru bil-ma'ruf wa-nahi anil-munkar la yadfa'u rizqan wa la yuqaddimu ajala. Very beautiful. And the one who encompasses this meaning into his heart and implements it, they will find many benefits in their life. Allah, wallah, they will find many benefits in their life. There was once a great scholar named Affan ibn Muslim as-Saffar. Affan ibn Muslim as-Saffar. And he was tested just like Imam Ahmad was tested by the Mu'tazilah. What would occur to Imam Ahmad, the same thing happened to this great scholar Affan ibn Muslim as-Saffar. So the governor in Affan's region leaned towards the Mu'tazilah at that time. And the governor used to give this scholar a a monthly allowance, about 100 dinars monthly. So this scholar, he also used to have many dependents. It was mentioned that he had about 40 dependents, 40 people he needed to take care of, his kids, wives, parents, etc. He had 40 people to take care of, subhanallah. So this governor sent a messenger to this scholar, telling him that the governor wants him to give the fatwa to the people, to give this fatwa to the people. The scholar said, no, I'm not doing this, because the fatwa was wrong and he didn't want to misguide people. So the messenger said, then he will cut off the money that he gives to you. This allowance that he gives to you, he's going to cut it off. And this scholar, Affan ibn Muslim as-Saffar, may Allah Ta'ala raise his rank, he mentioned a verse in the Quran. So he replied with a verse in the Quran. He said, Allah said in the Quran, وَفِي السَّمَاءِ رِزْقُكُمْ وَمَا تُوعَدُونَ. This is how he replied to him. And this verse means that your rizq, your sustenance is in the sky. And what this means is that everything that you acquire in this life, your rizq, is already written in the sky in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. So what this scholar acquires in his life from his sustenance, from his rizq, is already written. This governor is not going to decrease from that. And he relied on Allah completely, 100%, subhanallah. So they cut off his allowance that he was getting. But what happened after that, subhanallah, it was mentioned that when they cut off the allowance coming to this scholar, Affan ibn Muslim, there would be a man who would come at night. He would knock on the door, and this person he came in the image of a person who used to work with zayt, with oil. They call it a zayyat, right? Zayyat is a person who works with oil. Like his clothing was stained and whatnot. So this person would come to the door and he would knock, and he would have a pouch. He would be carrying a pouch. And he said to this scholar, Nasarta deen Allah fa nasaraka Allah, that you supported the religion of Allah and Allah will support you. And this is how his wealth used to come. This person will come to his house and would give him money continuously. And this is how he had his rizq. Allahu Akbar. Allah Ta'ala facilitated for him. Do the obligations, refrain from the haram, and Allah Ta'ala will provide for you. Fear Allah and Allah Ta'ala will provide for you. And it's important to mention here also that the word rizq encompasses both the halal and haram. So the halal is called rizq and the haram is called rizq. There are some people out there who don't believe that the haram is rizq, is sustenance. Right? So the rizq, the sustenance, includes the halal and the haram. So when someone is doing something halal, like he's eating something halal, for example, or he has money that's coming from halal ways, this is considered rizq. And when someone is doing something that is haram, this is also considered rizq. Alright, so it encompasses both. There's one scholar of Islam, he said in his book, Az-Zubad, يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَمَنْ شَاءَ أَحْرَمًا وَالرِّزْقُ مَا يَنْفَعُ وَلَوْ مُحَرَّمًا. And over here, this line of poetry basically means that rizq includes the halal and the haram. Both terms are considered to be rizq. And also remember, brothers and sisters, that fatigue does not increase in your rizq. There are some people out there who have the mentality that just because they work hard in something, that they will acquire it and they will have more of it. No, this is not the case. If Allah Ta'ala willed for you to have more money because you exerted that effort, then you will have more money. And if Allah Ta'ala willed for you not to have more money, even though you exerted an extreme amount of effort, then you will not have more money. Right? This is what it boils down to, brothers and sisters. This is what it boils down to. And also, intelligence does not add to your rizq, and dumbness and dullness does not decrease from your rizq. Allah Ta'ala, does He not provide for the animals? Of course He does. And what mind do they have? They do not have a mind, but Allah Ta'ala still provides for them, and they still find ways to eat. Subhanallah, you might even find an insane person, someone who's insane, he has a mental disability. At the same time, he turns out to be very rich. Right? He turns out to be very rich, and he got his money through inheritance. Allah Ta'ala provided for him, even though he doesn't have much of a mental capacity. And this is why it was mentioned in Arabic poetry, وَلَوْ كَانَتِ الْأَرْزَاقُ تَجْرِي عَلَى الْحِجَى هَلَكْنَا إِذًا مِّن جَهْلِهِنَّ الْبَهَائِمُ. That had the rizq been determined based on intelligence, based on minds, هَلَكْنَا إِذًا مِّن جَهْلِهِنَّ الْبَهَائِمُ, then the animals would have died. They would have died. Why? Because according to this, rizq is based on intelligence. So had that been the case, the animals would have perished, they would have died. But that is not the case, because the animals are alive, and even though they do not have intelligence, they do not have a mind, they still find ways to eat, and they still find ways to live. And there was once one of our brothers, he used to have a store and he used to sell wheat in that store. And what would happen is that there would be a bird that would come every day and it would take a seed. It would take one of the seeds, it would go. Then it would come back, take another seed. It would go and come back, and like that, back and forth, consistently and continuously. So one day he thought to himself, where is this bird going? What is it doing? So he wanted to follow it, and that's what he did. He went and he followed it until it went to a tree, and it went inside the tree into the hole. So he looked at it, and then he got a ladder, he climbed up to the tree, and he looked inside into the hole. And inside the tree into the hole, he found another bird, a blind bird. And that bird was going, it was taking those seeds and it was putting it into his mouth directly. Allahu Akbar. Allah Ta'ala provides for us and for the animals. And this is how a person should have his mentality, that whatever Allah willed for you to have, you will have it. And whatever Allah Ta'ala willed for you not to have, you will not have it, no matter how hard you try. And inshaAllah Ta'ala, brothers and sisters, we will stop here. Ahsanallahu ilaykum. We mentioned many beneficial, beautiful things in this lesson. I encourage you to teach and to spread what you learned, even if it's one hadith, if it's one verse, one story of a scholar, something beneficial that you learned, spread it, convey it. This is our job as Muslims, to convey and to give da'wah to people. So if you have a brother, a sister, mother, father, a relative, a colleague at work, someone at school, university, college, whatever it is, convey it, teach them, Inshallah ta'ala, you will have reward for it. May Allah ta'ala facilitate for you. I also encourage you to donate for the sake of Allah. Anybody wants to donate online, there are tabs that we have, fatih.com, ilmwaves.com, inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. We will end here and we will continue next week, inshallah ta'ala. Subhanaka rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al-mursaleen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you liked it, check out the rest of our series. And donate for the sake of Allah so that we may continue spreading the obligatory knowledge to Muslims all over the world. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah accept your deeds.